Text Ed now on 53030. 53030.
And you're very welcome back to the programme this afternoon. It's Ed Myers in till 3. Levels of homework from teachers can be a contentious issue amongst some parents. Some teachers give more, others less. And regardless of the amounts of homework given, is homework an effective tool in preparing children for getting on in life? Education expert Dr. Naoisé O'Reilly believes that homework is a pointless exercise and says that there are more creative and effective ways for young people to retain information. And Dr. O'Reilly is with us on the line. Naoisé, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Very well, thank you. As a parent of 3 children, I know that different levels of homework attract, depending on what year they're in, what cycle they're in. Sometimes a particular teacher in a certain year may give more homework than he did in a previous year, and that depends on the age and the ability and the work that's been covered in the classroom. But you believe that excessive levels of homework can be counterproductive?
Yes, no, this is something that I set up a tuition centre myself 3 years ago, based in Dublin. And this also came out of a workshop that I ran for Aspire last week, which was for parents supporting their children at home with homework. And what we've seen, working with students ranging between the ages of 6 right up to adults returning to education, is that in some cases, the amount of homework given seems to be really excessive. Like, we have even got 6 and 7-year-olds that are spending 2 hours a night doing homework, and their parents are supporting them hugely at home, especially if they have any learning difficulties. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of see is that the students are kind of in this vortex where they're kind of stressing all week, sort of Monday to Thursday, about everything they have to do. We find it very hard to get the space to actually teach them the things that we really want them to learn, because they're so focused on having their homework done for the next day, which is very short-sighted. Then they possibly take a little bit of time off on a Friday evening, and quite often do a lot of work on Saturdays and Sundays over the weekend, which really eats into the family time and seems to be incredibly stressful for everybody involved.
But wouldn't the levels of homework being given to students relate or directly equate to the amount of coursework that's been done in the classroom? If you do it in the classroom, then surely you don't have to do it all again at home.
Well, there doesn't seem to be any sort of logical, sort of coherent structure and plan to it, to be honest with you. And one of the things I sort of see when people get to junior cert and leaving cert level in particular is that they're working very hard in the classroom. Then they quite often stay in school for after-school study. They still have a lot of homework to do, and even very conscientious students who've maybe done 4 hours homework sort of feel, well, I haven't done enough revision, and I'm still stressed that I haven't done enough, which I just kind of find ridiculous. It seems to be kind of almost every teacher for themselves to sort of look after their subject and not really think about a sort of a plan long term until June. And then I suppose the thing for me is as well that we teach in a very effective way in the tuition centre that I run, and basically what we do is we present all the material in 4 ways. So it's either visual, auditory, practical or kinesthetic. So the students are hugely involved in the classes, and there's a learning style there to match everybody, which means that they've really taken the information on board the way they need to. We don't need to set work for them to do outside, and then any revision work that they do, they tend to do it in the way that's best for them. So it might be watching a YouTube clip, or drawing out a mind map and having a visual picture, or drawing out a diagram, or making something practical, or getting up and walking around the room and actually saying stuff out and saying it back to you, and actually working in groups. So the homework that's been set is very much about reading and writing, which is only a very small amount of people work in that way.
Looking at the amount of homework that is done at home, and I'm sure there's parents looking at the radio and nodding in agreement that yes, there are times when homework, either during the week or at the weekends, can erode into family life. But take away homework altogether, and then what happens? Should there be other ways where children, having learned something in the classroom, can take that lesson home and reinforce what they've learned? Perhaps not doing traditional homework, but by doing something else.
Well, this is the thing that I really did in the workshop that I ran last week. I tried to show parents that there was other ways to make the topic interesting, because ultimately what you're trying to do at the end of the day is you're trying to get the students interested in it. You're trying to get them to do a little bit of project work outside, to do a bit of independent learning, to learn how to do research skills, to have a bit of sort of time management. And in fact, I went to a particularly good primary school at one stage myself, and I had a very gifted teacher, Jim, who used to set us mini projects to do. And so we would do our little bit of history, mythology, and Irish history and geography and all the other topics, a little bit of science. We'd build them all into a project that we maybe did every sort of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, which made more sense. and it was a bit more sort of evolved. But like, there's so many other things that parents can be doing with their children, like, you know, even debating current politics around the dinner table, or watching an introductory together, or going to art galleries and museums at the weekends, or the sports fields, or cooking together and baking. There's a huge amount of skills to be learned in cooking. So I just feel that it's not up to them to sit down and do hours and hours of reading and writing.
And while those alternative options you outlined just a moment ago may be suitable for primary school students, for those in post-primary, perhaps in the exam cycles, junior and leaving certificate students, they have study, and in many cases they have homework to do as well.
Yeah, this is the thing, but you can really look at study in a different way. Like, I always say that people who come and spend an hour with us, that it's worth 3 in their bedroom, and that's because they're doing something sort of very constructive and very focused towards the way that they learn, rather than just writing out notes or just trying to read the book. So there's a huge amount of material available on the internet for people to do. All of the subjects at this stage have got really interesting topics and really interesting practical exercises up on the internet, particularly on YouTube. And so there's a vast amount of material available out there for people to do things in a slightly different way. But it does, like, the sort of idea of setting homework, it doesn't seem to be logical at the moment. It just seems to be very short term. Like, even if you do maths in school, doing the maths tonight of what you did today and maybe doing 10 problems exactly the same doesn't really make sense to me. You should sort of have a little bit of a break and go away maybe in 2 weeks' time and try and do it then. See, did I really understand it? Did I really take it in? Or am I just learning this off?
The National Parents Council Post-Primary have said and have agreed with you that the time students spend doing homework needs to be examined. What have the teaching unions, or indeed individual teachers or school principals, have they reacted in any way at all?
There's going to be varying reactions. An awful lot of parents in particular have been very supportive. There's been a lot of comments on our own Facebook page, and also on the Facebook pages of quite a few radio talk shows that I've done over the last 3 days, and that's been incredibly supportive. There was another teacher speaking on a radio show I did earlier today who, in essence, was quite supportive, but the difficulty they have is that some parents actually seem to expect homework, and this was the thing that came up in the workshop as well last week, that parents seem to see the amount of homework being set as some sort of an assessment for what's happening in school, which doesn't really make sense to me. It shouldn't be an assessment of what the teachers are doing. It should be the students should own their own work and be doing an assessment of their own goals and their own achievements. It shouldn't be a sort of monitoring, setting homework so that people know what's happening in the class. So there is an expectation from a very small percentage of parents out there that they expect homework to be set. So the teachers are just as lost in this process as the students are.
Can I ask you finally, Naoisé, do you believe there should be increased dialogue between parents, students and teachers regarding the levels of homework? Because for some teachers, they may feel giving large quantities of homework is what's expected of them. Others perhaps don't feel the same need, and different schools, their homework policies differ.
Yeah, I think there just needs to be a huge more dialogue in general. Like, I think we have an education system that's very much set up to suit what they think is the majority of people. And the majority of people that actually get through it and do very well is only about 25% get to go on to third level. So obviously it's not working that effectively. And there's a lot of people in the system who are very kinesthetic. So they're brilliant on the sports field, but feel like they're absolutely useless in a class environment, which I think is very unfortunate. So there needs to be a lot more dialogue in general about the personalities of students and each individual person in general.
That's Dr. Naoisé O'Reilly asking questions about the levels of homework and whether excessive homework is a pointless exercise or not. Your thoughts and views are welcome, of course,